everybody. My name is Debbie Frank, and I stamp under the name Frankly Stamping. That is my group. And I thought I would come on today and show you the fantastic paper pumpkin that just came out. And it's called Lakeside Retreat, and it makes 9 cards, and I just think they're amazing. Now this does coordinate with the relaxing Waterside set that will be coming out on May 5th. Our catalog goes live on May 5th. And I like to make alternatives from our paper pumpkin kit. So here's what comes in the kit. You get a stamp set with 13 stamps, including thanks, older, wiser, better, you are a lifesaver, you are an inspiration, dad, son, happy birthday, happy Father's Day, and then this grassy cattails, a little rope, and some birds. And this I was able to stamp and then color in the brown on the cattails with my dark pecan pie blends. So these are the scenes that come in, and I'm going to show you. I have already used up, I think, all of the square ones. But like this, you get these card bases. There's the stamp set. You get rocks, which I wasn't crazy about, but I did use a few. I have 2 sets. That's why this is a full set that looks like I haven't used any. And then you get a full sheet of these little tags that'll fit on these signs. You get these little signs. And those will work with that, or just as an extra tag under these strip tags. So you get a full sheet of those, and then you get a full sheet of these little labels, and you can see I've used a lot of the brown ones. And you get brown pecan pie and midnight or misty moonlight blue signs. This is one of the beautiful sceneries, and then you get a layering circle. And then you get some ephemera, a fish, like maybe would be attached to a sign. And then some blue lifesavers, and there are several of the oars in there. This was one card base, and you can see I have cut it down because I was using it for a card. This was the back of the card base, and I always cut them down because I can use them. You know, I can use this as on a card, and I can use this on a card. So that doubles, at least doubles my card making. Here's another card base. And then this was a card base, and they layered this on this. And again, I cut those apart. These were the envelopes, and you'll see on one of the cards where I cut the envelope apart, and I used it. And this is beautiful watercolor. And you also get tear and tape and dimensionals. And then these were the original cards, the one with, and I always, like I said, I've already cut my card bases apart so that I could use them separately. And there's our bicycle ephemera. And I did change the greetings on some of mine because my father is deceased and has been for many years. So I did not make these into Father's Day cards. I probably will make one into Father's Day card for maybe my husband, but I did not make any. I made them into birthday cards because I will use them, be more apt to use them. And I did not do anything on the inside of these because I just wanted to get the original cards, one of each, made so that I could show you what the original cards looked like. And there you can see I've used that little greenery. And I meant to go back in and color those in brown for the cattails, but I forgot to do that. And then this is another one that I cut into a card base, just plain basic white and layered. So those are the original cards. Okay. And I would say if you have not tried the paper pumpkin kits, this would be a great time to do it. And there are always several people out there that do videos with alternative cards, and they're a lot of fun to think outside the box. This was one of my shaker cards that I did, and I just cut some of the greenery, stamped and cut some of the greenery. And you also get, I forgot, you also get a Stampin' Spot, and this one was one of the new in colors, Peaceful Pine. So, and then I just found some shaker bits that I could put in here that kind of coordinated, you know, with the colors. We have some peachy and some green, and I just thought that those worked well. Now, these cattails are from the die set that I just showed you. What did I do with it? Relaxing Waterside has some amazing dies. Look at this Adirondack chair. And these are the cattails that I use. So I just stamped those in green on Peaceful Pine cardstock, and then I just colored in the tips with my dark pecan pie blend alcohol marker. And then this is the new, and I have used some of the new supplies on these, but not on all of them. This is the new Peaceful Pine ribbon and just a little bit of linen thread to tie around it to make a bow. So that's part of my shaker card. And then, hi Sharon. This is a triple flap card. This first layer pops up like this. Then you have your middle layer, and then you have the inside. And this, let me mention this, each 3 months, Stampin' Up! Does a die set that will match or coordinate with the next 3 months of Paper Pumpkin. So this was the one that was for April, May, and June. And I don't remember if I used any of those this time. Oh yeah, I did. I used the signpost. And I will give you the measurements for this. This is just a standard 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then you'll cut 1 1/4 inch from each end. For this card, we used a bridge, which is 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And then I just used a little strip off of my card base that I had cut off, and decorated the front of this, then embossed it with the Soft Waves embossing folder. And then these little strips, I believe, are 1 1/8 by 5 3/8. I just wanted a tiny border. And then I just decorated the inside with my ephemera, and I tried to make sure that my ephemera did not stick out here because my signpost was going to stick out if I stuck it down any farther. So I did check that, and then I just stamped a little on the inside. So that is, and then I did use a stylish shape. I cut this down to my largest stylish shapes circle, and then I used the what's the other set? I used the Spotlight on Nature dies to cut this circle out. And then the largest, this is also a Spotlight on Nature, and I used the largest one to cut that out. So that's my Misty Moonlight triple layer. Now here is the same card layout, only you don't do the bridge, and you just see I did cut out the middle of, this is a square that comes in the kit, and I just cut the center out and popped it up, and then put it back inside the circle, so it's just popped up. You can see here it's popped up on the dimensionals, but I used the whole square. These I did not put, like on here we put the designer paper, which was actually one of my card bases I cut apart. We used it in 2 places there, and here we're just using it in this one. We are gluing these flaps down, so we don't need, we don't need double. So that's just from a triple to a double fun flap card. Very easy to make. Now here's another type of fun flap where you glue this under your layer, under your inside layer here. This is another layer of white. You can see where I have put the other layer on. And that's just a 1/2 inch. So this could be, this base part, the basic white card base is 6.5 wide, 5.5 tall. And then we're going to score this flap on that 6.5 inch side at 2 1/4. So that's what makes this little flap here. And then you'll decorate this with your designer paper. I used an 1/8 measurements because I wanted more designer paper and less card base since it's just white. Excuse me. And then this piece, again, I did not even measure this piece. I just decided how much I wanted beyond, this is the whole square that you're given in the kit. And then I just layered it on that Misty Moonlight. This was one of the extra sheets that came in the card base. That was this sheet. And I just, when I laid it on its side, I didn't even have to trim this way. I only had to trim, here. And then you're going to, when you get it to where you want, whatever size you want, you're going to add a 1/2 inch and put a score line. Because you want that to fold underneath your, this other layer where you're putting your greeting and stuff. And so that's just folded and glued under here. And you don't see it on the back. And then it just flaps over. And I use some of the Moody Moody glossy dots, and I just colored these with my dark Misty Moonlight blend marker so that I could have the blue on this one. And then this ephemera, the bicycle, came in the kit. And that's that one. And then I did one in the green plaid. Same thing. There was a measurement that I had seen for this, but I don't know, it was too small. And I wanted a bigger scenery piece. So what I did was I took the plastic on my stamp case, which I can find it here. Of course not. I took the piece of plastic that was on my stamp case, and put it on the, scenery so I could decide kind of like where I wanted it. And then, so this gave me the best view with getting a little bit of the boat, a little bit of this island over here, some of the sky, and then this pier. So I got a little bit of everything. And then I just put that on a piece of Peaceful Pine cardstock and cut around it to 1/8 inch. So, and then here is the greenery that's in it, and I just fussy cut that and then colored the cattails with my brown pecan pie marker. And then these are some dots that will be coming in the May 5th catalog. And then I used a little bit of the linen thread there, and then used Older, Wiser, Better. And I did stamp this in black with the new hybrid black and ink pad. And I didn't have any problem with it drying. But I think it depends on where you live. If you are in a humid climate, it may take a little longer. I'm kind of in a humid climate. But on this paper, or the label paper that they gave us, I didn't see it. I didn't have any problem with it drying or smearing. So I know there's been a lot of different reports that it does not dry very well on basic white, but it does dry fairly well on thick basic white and white willow. And I do not have the white willow here to try it out, but I did use it on this card. So this, and another trick that you can use is take a piece of window sheet and cut it to about the size you want. And this one had some stuff sticky stuff I couldn't get off, so I just cut this piece off to use for this. And so I just took this and put on my scenery to kind of see, you know, the best part of the scenery that I wanted to use in this card. So there's that one. I don't know if I showed you the inside. I just make it into a birthday card. And then we are going to move on to, and I dropped one here in the floor. It fell off on my stack. This is the double vision card. And this basically, I just use 1/8 and 1/8. And then I cut all of my, this is the whole scene. And you can see here where I cut it, you know, cut it off. But on this one, this is the whole sheet. And we just cut each one of these strips in 1/2-inch pieces. And I think I trimmed off just a little bit so that it would fit on my layer. And then I used the Older, Wiser, Better. And I also used not only the label, but I used the backing that it had on it, and then popped it up over the backings, you can see there, and added a little bit of linen thread. And there's another one of our bikes, and I used the blending brush and some pecan pie, and just kind of took the stark whiteness off of that. And then I just decorated it with a little piece of the green plaid from another card base. And there's the little green foliage in the stamp set, and happy birthday. Then I made some bridge cards. Now I will show you, these mainly used the kit, except for the embossing folder. So this is a bridge card. Folds flat to put in your envelope. This is the ephemera from the kit, the life jacket and the oars. And then You're an Inspiration is one of the stamps in there. And I did stamp this one with Misty Moonlight. And I did use the triple banner punch to punch this for my greeting, instead of using one of those in the kit. And then here is my, you can see I used the envelope here to cut my strips. And then I took the circle and I had to cut it down just a little bit, but I think it still looks okay in the under the bridge. And this card measures 4 1/4 by 8. 4 1/4 by 8. And then I scored it at a 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 3/4. And that's what makes your folds here. And then I just used, since this was 4 1/4, I just took 1/8 off. And this was 1 1/4, and I made that 1 1/8, and so I only have 1/8 of inch border on everything. And then same with this. This ends up being 3 inches. I made this 2 7/8 wide by 4 1/8 tall. And then my bridge is, I believe, an inch. I believe it's an inch. A little over an inch, about 1 1/8 inches. And then I just added a white border, another layer underneath, so it would give this some stability. And then I embossed both pieces. And that will lay flat to fit in your envelope. And then I did one in the green plaid. Same thing, same measurements. There's some of the rocks. There's some of the foliage, and I just fussy cut that. And you can see I used a card base that I wasn't going to use, so I just thought, well, I'll just use that since I already have it cut. And you can see I have a little bit of a embossed line. You can see where I had folded it to use it for a card and then decided not to. But see, that's the whole, pretty much the whole scenery, and I wanted to get as much of that scenery inside as I could. So this is probably a 1/16, cut to a 1/16 on the inside, that white layer, and then this is another 1/16, so that would be an 1/8 there. And then these are the 2026, 2028 dots. And then the last one I thought was over the top, the best. And this uses the Relaxing Waterside Stampin' die set. I stamped the Adirondack chair on the vanilla, basic beige. And then stamped in pecan, the pecan pie. And then I cut out one of the coffee cups out of Pool Party and stamped it in, I think I stamped that in Misty Moonlight. And then this is Misty Moonlight, and I used one of the card bases, the wood tone, to look like this was a wood sign. And I used my blending brush with my pecan pie to kind of take the little bit of the white edge off of that. And then Today Is Your Day. And then I cut some of the foliage out of the Relaxing Waterside. This is the stamp. And then these are the dies out of that same set. I just love those. And then some of the rocks. And then I cut one of the little seagulls, or little, is it egret? Anyway, one of the little birds that's in there. And then I added some to the inside. And you'll see a little bit, like, you know, from the bottom. But again, there's my bridge with the soft waves, since we're kind of thinking we're sitting by the water. And this was one of the card bases. This was that layer, that Misty Moonlight layer that they gave us. This piece I had cut down for this, and then just put my sign attached to my greeting up here. And we added a few rocks at the bottom. And again, this, it measures 6.5 by 4, 6.5 by 6.5. No, 4.25 by 8. 4.25 this way, 8 this way. And then I scored it at 1.25, 2.5, 1.25, 2.5, 5.5, 6 3/4. And then just cut your little, you need 4 of the labels, or the panels, cut down. And then your inside is 3 by 4.25. So you'll just adjust that to whatever, you know, border you want. That looks like an quarter. But I thought that turned out really pretty. So that is all of the cards that I made with this kit, alternatives. We had the green, and another blue. And then we had, we'll just put one of these. I have the double vision. We have the flap, single flap. We have this single flap, center flap, fold. And then we have the triple, keep hitting my cord. And then we have our shaker card. So, which is your favorite? Would you please leave me a comment down below and tell me which card was your favorite, which alternative was your favorite. And if you would subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to build my channel, and it's going slowly, but consistently. And if you would share this with your friends, I would appreciate it. And I probably will have this up on my blog in a day or two, and you can get the measurements and stuff from there at franklystamping.com. And thanks for joining me today. Goodbye.